You're trying to be helpful. Yeah. And you know people, you have everything to tell them.
Yep.
Good morning. Well, yes. Olivia and I got sorry. I didn't know anything about it. I got to be a little bit.
Obviously, talk to them.
I'm sorry.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
How's the first like every day in September?
Jordan? Whatever you need.
I know, but oh my gosh, we just need to see this tomorrow. Not just janitors, but maintenance stuff. I know, nice to talk with them. I understand, because we don't pay anything. You're,
Kind of roll around.
I've been comfortable all week.
Walt. We're gonna.
I didn't see him carrying around the talk. Bye. Yeah, tell him start. Get ready.
Good morning. This will be your first call for your Class 1 Durocs. In this class, we have 4 exhibitors: Ainsley Burns, Callan Longhenny, Taylor Miller, and Eric Sapien. You can start bringing your animals towards the ring.
Unless you tell me something I need to know. Other than that, let's take a look. I'm gonna set mine there for the time.
We're good, you all right? They don't go in that other room over there, that's it. I know.
And the Jackie Girls one. I mean, most of the Jackie's one. Good morning.
Maybe.
Morning.
Good morning. How are y'all this
I'm good. How are you, buddy?
Doing well. Good to see y'all.
Coming home and getting busy.
Yes, I enjoy it.
Hello, y'all.
How are you? I know you got your info. That's okay. You doing? Just good to see you.
Did you talk to Alice? I told her to get on.
I don't think we got too many.
She's at her phone to say, I don't think I've talked to her yet.
She's not there yet.
No,
But
she studied.
I'll give you my number, get it from Dad, and I'll pass it to her. We'll try to set up a tour and whatever y'all need.
She's,
We'll do
she's a year away. She's like in Arkansas.
We get toured, set up visits.
I know her better.
Alrighty. Just let me know what I need to do.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for being here.
Walt, you ready? Quattro, did you sing the national anthem? You ready?
Yes, sir.
Part of my deal
Again, we'll start our talk show this morning with our first class of Durocs. In this first class, we have 4 exhibitors. Ainsley Burns will be exhibiting a Duroc weighing 185 pounds. Callan Longhenny with a Duroc hog weighing 192 pounds. Taylor Miller with an animal weighing 200 pounds. And Eric Sapien with an animal also weighing 200 pounds. This morning, before we get started here, we'd like to say something about the fact that this is, I believe, the 99th Mason County Junior Livestock Show. So next year, maybe we'll make it to 100 years. We hope all our exhibitors are still around, but 99 years, it's come a long way since it used to show down on the square. This morning, our hall judge is Katie Kemping. Katie is a graduate student at Texas A&M University. She is also the assistant livestock judging team coach. Katie is a major in animal science with a minor in nutrition. We want to welcome Katie here with us today. Let's give her a hand. Appreciate it. Here you go.
Sir.
Okay, Mike, that's enough. As the exhibitors are bringing their animals up, let me go over a couple of things right quickly here. Our swine superintendent this year is Walt Brawls. We also have our concession stand open. Be sure and go visit our concession stand over here and see if you need some good hot coffee for this morning. We're going to talk just a little bit about our donors here. Our grand champion market swine buckle is donated by Hill Country Veterinary Hospital, Drs. Dave and Andy Rossberg. The grand champion market swine banner is donated by Longhorn Storage, Colin and David Evans and Lisa and Jim Roy Atchison. The reserve grand champion market swine buckle is donated by Jody and Sandy Osborne, and the reserve grand champion market swine banner is donated by Ryan and Kaylin Jordan.
Well, I'm awfully excited to be here today and sorting through your hogs and later on your cattle show. I think it's a real honor and privilege, and no other way that I'd rather spend this whole day than sorting through stock. And so thanks for having me. The young man that I'm going to elect to lead off with in this first class, I think has a really nice barrow. One that is so tall bladed, extended ahead of it, transitions back, still plenty bold in terms of his rib cage. I think the set utilization to his rear leg is probably the most attractive and then still useful. I'm not saying he's maybe the most overwhelming just yet in terms of his center body or rib cage. It probably goes to the young lady's bear that's going to be in second. But I just think in terms of quality, build, and look from the side, that one's bar none my favorite. Now, a young lady's bear that comes second, I think that guy is pretty overwhelming in terms of his rib shape. If you actually study the turn to the upper portions of his rib cage, it set a real nice foundation for him to feel a lot of shape up high. I think one that's pretty attractive and still up-headed and extended ahead of his blade. One that in terms of his rear leg, I'd like to adjust just a nickel. Kind of wants to pull his hock in, maybe stouten him up just a touch at the surface, but one that's loaded with true power there. Young lady's got a really stout-skulled, stout-featured one to come next, and I like those things about him. He's really big in terms of his upper hip. You study that guy just in terms of his actual turn to his sternum and his rib cage. I'd like to see him just opened up a nickel more. And if you just study him, he kind of wants to get rounder in terms of his hip. Maybe just doesn't want to show himself off quite as nicely as a couple others out here. Young man's bear that's going to come in fourth, I think one that's real loose skeleton, plenty flexible in how he goes. One that just needs to be bulked up today. If you study him comparatively, just coming and going, you'd like to give him a notch more rib power and dimension to compete, or one that I still think has the right kind of fundamentals. Let's give all these kiddos a round of applause. They're doing a real nice job.
Placings in our first class of Durocs. Fourth place is awarded to Eric Safian. Seventh place, Taylor Miller. Second place, Ainsley Burns. Class winner, Callan Longhead. All right, we're ready for our second class, market swine. We have 5 exhibitors in this class: Nathaniel Lanning, Haley Holbrook, Callan Longhead, Bronwyn Underwood, and Cooper Mitchell. second class of Durocs in the ring now. Our exhibitors, Nathaniel Lanning showing a Duroc weighing 226 pounds, Haley Holbrook with an animal weighing 228 pounds, Callan Longheny with a Duroc weighing 230 pounds, Bronwyn Underwood with a 237-pound Duroc, and Cooper Mitchell with an animal weighing 238 pounds.
Again, I think another really good class, and particularly a really good individual that's going to go ahead and win. And again, I think maybe he's a nickel green in terms of his body shape still, but study that guy in terms of his basic build, that kind of elevation, that kind of skull. We have one.
That's all right, Katie. They're just a little slow getting here. We'll be all right.
Maybe I'm just fast. Sorry, I've had 4 cups of coffee this morning, so I'm a little fast. So I apologize. I get a little carried away and ahead of myself, but I still think a really nice class, and we probably just added, some quality even with the individuals that came in. But the young man's barrow that's going to go ahead and win, I still think is really, really good. If you study that guy's elevation, I appreciate it because it comes with a laid-back blade and knee. He's busted open in terms of his chest. He's got a really neat and flexible hip and hind leg that particularly for a red hog I think is very unique. That one's build, look, extension just all screams quality. Again, maybe not just the most overwhelming in terms of his rib shape today, but that one's got the right pieces, I think, to be awfully, awfully good down the road. Young lady's gilt that's going to go ahead and be second. I think that one's real easy to read. Huge in terms of her rib shape, really big in terms of her pin set, busted open still whenever she comes at you. One that you just kind of study from the side and maybe start to show her age, maybe a nickel, just in terms of needs to be cleaned up at the top side of her neck there. Maybe just needs to come a bit stouter in terms of her foot size and better in your utilization of her hip and hind leg. But one that I think is just massive body, really powerful, still comes in a really still attractive package out here. A young man that's going to go ahead and be third. I think one that's big hip, loose skeleton, big featured. I like those things about him. Maybe not as neat looking as a couple others. Like to fix him in terms of his hip ever so slightly. Just like to fix her and just how her head carriage and how it comes out of the top side of her blade. But I think one that's got the foot size, got the muscularity that I'm kind of looking for. Young ladies, and I think the next two coming out are pretty close. Young lady that comes out next, I like that gal's fresh shape up high, like her extra shot of pin width and power, and I actually think today she's just moving with a little more flexibility in terms of her rear leg relative to the barrow that's going to be fourth or fifth. Young man's a barrow, I think one that's tall scaled, extended, and pretty level. I think for me, you truly study that one coming and going, needs to be busted open underneath, come with more flexibility in how he utilizes his rear leg. but one that I think comes with some extension, one that I still think is long-scaled and still neat-looking from the side. Let's give all those individuals a round of applause. I thought the young man's at wins off nice.
Thank you, Judge Kemping. Placings in our second class with Duroc Market Swine. Fifth place is awarded to Nathaniel Lanning. Fourth place exhibited by Haley Holbrook. Third place animal exhibited by Cooper Mitchell. Bronwyn Underwood exhibited the second place Duroc, and first place class winner exhibited by Callan Longhenny.
Man, you're doing a hard job.
In our third and final class of Duroc Market Animals, Lila Jackson exhibiting a market swine weighing 250 pounds, Ruby Osborne with a Duroc weighing 258 pounds, Langston Jordan with a Duroc weighing 275 pounds, and Elizabeth Schmidt exhibiting an animal weighing 294 pounds.
All right, y'all ready? Another nice class, and I think a lot of differences, so maybe that is what requires some sort and challenge, but the young ladies that's going to go ahead and win, I definitely just feel the most comfortable using today. So I think in terms of her body shape, in terms of her build, she still represents a really productive piece of livestock. And then you kind of study her relative to her contemporaries out here, and I still think she balances up the best. And from the side, I just really feel the most comfortable coming and going. That one's busted open, got plenty of rib shape, plenty of power, and then she still utilizes it on a real nice foundation. And lady, you got one that's stout, powerful, opened up. There's no question that's a muscular kind of market hog there. Never question those things about him. For me, he's got to be built better first. And I think he kind of comes with the extras, but needs to do the fundamentals a nickel better, because you kind of study that guy in terms of his build. He gets real rock forward to the angle of his blade and knee. He wants to get off in his hip and kind of coordinated in how he utilizes his rear leg. So I certainly just like to square him up and make him a bit nickel better in those regards. But in terms of muscularity, power, and stoutness, yours has definitely got an advantage in those regards. Young man's going to come next. I think two very different ones here. This hog just hit me as a nickel sounder, deeper, and then still bigger featured. That's why I elected to use his barrow next. Young lady's barrow that's going to round out the class. I think one that's lean, shapely, still comes with plenty of stoutness at the ground. You kind of study that one from the side. He kind of wants to tuck up in terms of his flank, get rounder out of his hip. Maybe just doesn't balance up quite as nicely as a few others in here. But a really nice class. These kiddos are doing a nice job. Let's congratulate them.
Placings in our third and final class of Duroc Market Swine. Fourth place exhibited by Lila Jackson. Third place animal exhibited by Langston Jordan. Second place awarded to Ruby Osborne. And first place winner exhibited by Elizabeth Schmidt. While our judge is evaluating the Duroc for the champion Duroc of the 2024 show, again, I'd like to introduce our cattle judge and swine judge for this year. Katie Kemping is a graduate student at Texas A&M University. Katie is also the assistant livestock judging coach at Texas A&M. She is an animal science major with a minor in nutrition. Katie comes from a family of longtime stock show people. I'm just tickled to death to have her and also have her father here with us today. We appreciate her coming in and evaluating and working with our youngsters.
Well, thank you, and that was an awfully nice introduction. Yep, I brought my dad here with me today, so you're never too old to keep your parents around, and I brought my dad with me today, and so I'm really thrilled. He's what got me into showing pigs and then cattle down the road, and so, you know, kind of set the foundation for me to be as successful as I was, so I appreciate that he could take time out of his busy schedule to come with me and be my chauffeur, as he says. But I thought the Durocs were awfully nice. I thought, yeah, in particular, the two that I'm going to use for champion and reserve, not only do they represent good livestock because they're opened up, they're powerful, they got some skeletal width and dimension, they represent good livestock because they're high quality and they're built good and they have the right kind of fundamentals, but also the extras that I'm kind of after. You know, and I thought it was close between the pair, but I'm going to go congratulate the two that I like the best. Let's give them one more round of applause.
133 pounds. Regan Evans with a ham weighing 146 pounds. Frankie Bowley exhibiting a ham weighing 192 pounds. Hannah Holbrook with a Hampshire weighing 197 pounds, and Latham Miller with an animal weighing 201 pounds.
You know, I think an interesting class. I mean, obviously some variations in terms of weight, probably endpoints, and ultimately kind of where they're going to go down the road. And so with that in mind and just kind of how they're presented today is ultimately what probably made my decision. Young man's bear that's going to win. I mean, unquestionably, when that one comes out of the gate, like he's so proud apart in terms of his chest floor. That dude's really bold in the upper portions of his rib cage and has fueled a lot of expressive shape up high and leaves you plenty powerful. To fix that one, I'd like to, strengthen him in terms of his spine ever so slightly. Give him a bit more flexibility and probably square him up in terms of how he utilizes his rear leg. But one I deemed acceptable, and then in this particular class is just the most powerful, opened up, and wide skeleton one of the group. Young lady's bear that's going to come in second. I think one that does the fundamentals awfully good. Again, another wide, powerful, and one that's got plenty of shape and dimension. He's probably maybe not the most intriguing looking in terms of how he's hooked up and his neck in terms of his blade. Probably wants to get a bit rounder out of his hip, but one that's really good in terms of his skeleton, in terms of how he utilizes his rear leg, and then one that I think is plenty wide and opened up as well. I think the next three get a bit challenging just based off presentation and kind of how they are today. Probably looking in terms of how he's hooked up and how his neck in terms of his blade. Probably wants to get a bit rounder out of his hip, but one that's really good in terms of his skeleton, in terms of how he utilizes his rear leg, and then one that I think is plenty wide and opened up as well. I think the next three get a bit challenging just based off presentation and kind of how they are today. I personally think we really kicked up the quality bar in this particular class. I think there's some awfully good ones, and so we're discussing. I'll kind of tell you how I saw them and kind of discuss the differences. Young lady's bear that wins, I mean, from the time he kind of stepped in, you could just see how massive he was in terms of his chest width. He's really, really powerful. If you study him up high, he's got a nice, fresh shape on him. He's presented to a real high degree. And then if you actually study him coming and going, I think he reads the most genuine in this particular class. And that's why I elected to use him to win. I mean, tack on the fact that, he's built nice, has a good look from the side, is short-backed and proportional, and I think those are just added bonuses. But really study that guy coming and going, and that's where I like him the best. Young man's bear that's going to go ahead and win. I mean, this guy is dense featured. He is hairy, and I think all those things really help him. I mean, that's a huge back leg that he's got and he's working with. He is short-backed. He's real proportional from the side. I like those things about him. When I just start studying him coming and going, I'd like to give him a shot more, especially through his lower stifle. I think that would help him not only just balance up a nickel better, but make that guy just a bit fresher and more genuine in terms of his shape. He looks like he just studies a nickel earlier maturing relative to the bear that wins, but I think that one's got some really, really nice and really high quality pieces about him. Young ladies, some of the same things can be said about yours. I think that one's build, could probably rival to be one of the best in the class. I think that guy is so long-hipped. He's really good in how he plants and pushes in terms of his rear leg. I think one that's awesome in terms of how his blade's constructed as well. But for me personally, I think whenever he comes in relative to the two that beat him today, I just need to see a nickel more, especially coming right at you. I'd just like to open him up in terms of his chest, just give him a shot more in terms of cheek right behind his blade there. But I think one that's built really, really good from the side. Young ladies, bear that's going to go ahead and be next. I think a really powerful one in terms of back shape, one that's plenty wide, plenty opened up. I think maybe just doesn't have the same type of extras as the ones that are going to go ahead and beat him today. Maybe just not a stout skull, maybe just not as unique looking in terms of his hip and hind leg construction, but one that does the fundamentals awfully, awfully good. Young ladies, gilt that's going to round out the class, another wide, powerful, opened up one that's really, really shapely today. To me, she just needs to be freshened up just a nickel. She's looking just a nickel bit stale out here relative to some of the other ones. And if you study her in terms of her hip and hind leg construction, just like to give her a shot more range of motion and comfort in how she plants them. But I think an awfully good class with a lot of high quality individuals. Good job, young lady.
Thanks again for those reasons on this class. Placings in this class: 5th place is awarded to Friendly Effort, 4th place exhibited by Avery Burns, 3rd place exhibited by Claire Schmidt, 2nd place exhibited by Kelton Jordan, and class winner exhibited by Bronwyn Underwood. In our final class of Hampshire Hog, we have 3 exhibitors in this class: Ruby Osborne with an animal weighing 238 pounds, Sutton Smith with an animal weighing 261 pounds, and Langston Jordan with a Hampshire Hog weighing 263 pounds.
How are you doing? Good. I'm sure. Thank you. interesting class, a lot of differences, and so I'll go ahead and discuss them. But young lady's bear that's going to go ahead and win, one that, in my opinion, just did the best job in terms of stoutness, power, and dimension on still a plenty flexible build. And I'll be the first to admit his hip and hind leg aren't just perfect. And I don't know if there's just a legitimate upgrade in this particular class, but if you just study that one in true skeletal with true power, true shape, that one's bar none the best in those regards. Young man's bear that comes next, that is a late maturing. That is a long spine, still stout featured barrow who, has got an attractive kind of set and carriage to his head. And naturally kind of up-headed kind of hog there. But one that relative to his size, relative to his frame, I just need to see a shot more to him. You got to study that guy coming and going. You sure like to open him up a nickel so he could fuel, more fresh topside shape. But I think one that, is tall fronted, really extended and late maturing. Young lady's bear that comes out next, that is a soft-bodied, one that's really productive in terms of his center skeleton, one that I think's big-hipped and plenty powerful. Just kind of get off to the side of him, and he kind of wants to get rounder off both ends of his skeleton, just like to freshen him up maybe in terms of his jowl. But I think one that does the fundamentals still plenty good. Let's give all three of these individuals a round of applause. They're doing a nice job out here.
Placings in the final class of Hampshire Hogs. Third place is exhibited by Sutton Smith. Second place exhibited by Langston Jordan. Class winner exhibited by Ruby Oliver.
Again, I thought the hamps were real solid all the way through. There's one particular one out here, though, in my opinion, just goes beyond having the fundamentals of skeletal width, muscle and dimension, but it's really got the extras in terms of look, in terms of proportionality, in terms of build, and that's going to be the young lady out of the second class. Thought that was a really deep one, so we'll go ahead and bring out that second for reserve consideration.
Good job.
Again, we bring out that second and one we talked about in class, huge in terms of his foot size, in terms of his feature, really short-backed and proportional, one that's really out there in a lot of ways, and that one's going to go ahead and be your reserve.
Reserve champion hamp exhibited by Kelton Jordan and the champion hamp here exhibited by Bronwyn Underwood. Our next group of hogs coming in are the classes of our dark OPBs. First class, we have 3 exhibitors in this class. Reed Yonker with an animal weighing 157 pounds. Wendy Jackson with a dark OPB weighing 165 pounds. And Dakota Martin with a dark OPB weighing 184 pounds. While we're waiting for these animals to come in here, I've been reminded to go over the schedule a little bit. Today, after we complete the Market Swine Show, we'll have the swine showmanship. From 12 to 1, we have our heifer at check-in and our steer weigh-in. We begin the cattle show at 3 o'clock. And once the cattle show is completed, then we have our cattle showmanship. Tomorrow, we bring in our sheep, weigh them between 8:30 and 9. The goats arrive at 9. They weigh in between 9 and 9:30, and the sheep show begins at 11 o'clock, with sheep showmanship following the sheep show, and then the goats show after this, and then goat showmanship. Then at the end, we have the fastest torch contest. Friday, we have our food and nutrition interviews beginning at 8 o'clock. The ag mechanic show outside here, we're going to begin at 9 a.m. The buyer's reception at 4 p.m., general store at 4 p.m., and the premium sale begins at 6 p.m. And also the annual reminder, you exhibitors, be sure and fill out your sales slip. If you don't fill out your sales slip, you end up selling at the end of the sale.
I think a real nice way to start off your dark OPBs and the young lady's Burke that's going to go ahead and win. I think a really high quality individual, to max out a Burke like that in terms of just width and dimension and still have that kind of proportional good look from the side stuff to do. That guy drives at you, really opened up in terms of his chest, still plenty bold in terms of his rib cage, but from the side is probably just where I like him the best. I'd like to maybe square him up just a nickel in terms of his front feet. But I think one that's just really, really good in terms of proportionality, in terms of balance, and then still coming with some muscularity and power. Young lady's bear that's going to come next, I think for me does so because of build. You study that guy in terms of his blade angle, in terms of the utilization to his hip and hind leg, I think are really, really good. He's probably not just the most overwhelming today in terms of rib cage or in terms of shape, but I think it'll come with some time. I think one that skeleton is what easily gets him into the second place. Young white man's gilt that comes next, wide opened up, big featured. I like those things about her. We got to square her up a nickel from behind. She's just starting to really push out there in terms of her hock. So let's do those things, and I think one that has still a lot of value in terms of carcass incentives. But let's give all these kiddos a round of applause. They're doing a great job.
Thank you, Judge Kemping. Your placings in our first class of dark OPBs. Third place exhibited by Reed Jonker. Second place, Wendy Jackson. And class winner exhibited by Dakota Martin. Next class of dark OPBs, we have 3 exhibitors in this class. Reed Yonker with a dark OPB weighing 186 pounds. Lucy Lindbergh with an animal weighing 187 pounds. And Langston Jordan exhibiting a dark OPB weighing 190 pounds. I've been asked to announce that Laura Brawls will be back over here by our general store area here. And if there's any of you folks that would like to contribute to add-ons especially on some of our non-placing animals, she'll be tickled to death to go ahead and we take cash, monies, or credit cards. No, seriously, just cash or checks.
Interesting class, and I just feel most comfortable starting with the young man's bear over here to my left. One that's wide, opened up, powerful, but particularly, in my opinion, this is the most genuine in terms of that guy's shape up high. Study him in terms of how he plants and pushes in terms of his rear leg. I like it probably the best of any. I just think that's a pretty fundamental, still good looking kind of hog to go ahead and win. I think the next two are interesting. Young ladies that's going to go ahead and be second. One that's really broad-jawed, stout-featured. I like those things about him. Really deep and soft-centered, but you kind of start to study that one in terms of his skull. He's a little earlier maturing just in terms of his type and kind. Just like to give that guy a notch more stretch and grow. Maybe just more genuine in how he leaves you. Just give him a shot more power in those regards. Young man spot that's going to go ahead and round out the class. One that I think is a later maturing option. Taller in terms of his blade, and I like those things about him. But if you really start to study that guy coming and going, he's got to be opened up a nickel for me. Then we got to give him a bit more reach and relaxation in terms of his blade and how he goes from there. But I think a real nice class. Let's give all three of those kiddos a round of applause. They were doing a good job.
Placings in our middleweight OPB class. Third place exhibited by Reed Yonker. Second place shown by Lucy Lindbergh. And class winner exhibited by Langston Jordan. exhibitors in our final class of dark OPBs. We have 4 animals in this class. Eva Jordan, with an animal weighing 200 pounds. Jackson Holbrook, exhibiting a dark OPB weighing 208 pounds. Ruby Osborne, with a dark OPB weighing 223 pounds. And Olivia Longhenny, with an animal weighing 226 pounds.
Real nice class, and you know, I'll be the first to admit my winner's probably just not the most out there in terms of skull or feature or maybe today's trends of the industry. But if you just look at that hog and really study that one in terms of his basic build, in terms of his body shape and muscularity, he's bar none the best in this particular class, and that's why I elected to use him to win. I mean, that guy is really broad in terms of his blade. He's opened up, powerful in terms of his rib cage, which is just set a real nice foundation for him to fuel a lot of topside width and power. But the young lady's gilt that's going to be second, you know, definitely has advantages in terms of skull, look, in terms of extension, in terms of foot size, and I really like those things about her. I think she's got a lot of really unique pieces for the breed. But for me in particular today, she just needs to come a nickel bolder and softer in terms of her rib cage. And then although I like the extra shot of flexibility that's built into her hind leg, I think she almost wants to kind of get underneath herself, and so it's just not quite as aesthetically pleasing. But I still think a real nice individual to go ahead and be second. She's doing an awfully good job. Young man's bear that's going to come next, you know, real meat and potatoes kind of hog, wide base, really still bold in terms of his rib cage. Kind of freshen that guy up just in terms of his composition. You kind of start to study him through his jaw and through his flank. You just kind of want to freshen him up in those regards. And young ladies, that rounds out the class has definitely got those advantages. That is a lean and still shapely kind of bear to come next. For me, the frailest featured hog's just got to be opened up underneath to fuel enough shape and power today. But I think a nice class with a lot of differences. Let's give them a round of applause.
Placings in our final class of dark OPBs. Fourth place was exhibited by Eva Jordan. Third place, Jackson Holbrook. Second place exhibited by Ruby Osborne, and class winner exhibited by Olivia Longhenny.
Again, I thought a real nice show all the way through in terms of your dark OPBs. You know, a challenging one because, you know, with all the different breed types and they come together, maybe they kind of look like they miss and match a nickel. But I think in particular, there's one out here that caught my eye early, just in terms of proportionality, in terms of quality, and still having the right kind of muscularity and shape. Young lady out of your first class is going to go ahead and be your second, or your champion. No need to bring out the second. We're going to follow her up with the young lady out of the last class.
Reserve champion OPB exhibited by Olivia Longhenny and champion exhibited by Dakota Martin. We only have one class of light OPBs, and in that class we have two exhibitors, Kelton Jordan with an animal weighing 214 pounds, and Judge Jackson with an animal weighing 240 pounds. And the winner of this class will be your champion light OPB, and the second place will be your reserve.
only 2 Chesters for your light OPB champion and reserve. So these are your 2 individuals that will be receiving awards today. And I think very nice, and particularly a young man's guilt that's going to go ahead and win. I think could still use a lot of competition. What I like best about her, I think, is her basic build. She's wide skeleton, still really square coming and going, and I appreciate those things about her. She's got plenty of width and dimension and power for me. You know, maybe not just the neatest scold or jawed thing out there, but I think one that's really proportional, it blends right, and balances up still really nice from the side. Young man's bear that's going to be second or reserve in this particular case, one that I think is really tall-bladed, really late maturing and long, tall scaled. One that's pretty stout in terms of his foot size. If you study that one in terms of his scold coming right at you, you sure like to stouten him up, just open him up right there to give him a shot more rib cage and width and just durability in those regards. But one that's heavyweight, powerful, and still plenty late maturing. And I appreciate those things about him. Let's give both these individuals a round of applause. They're doing a heck of a job.
Thank you again, Judge Kemping. Placings in this class and champion light and reserve champion. The champion exhibited by Kelton Jordan and the reserve champion by Judge Jackson. Our next class of market swine is our first class of Yorkshire swine. We have five exhibitors in this class. Reese Evans with an animal weighing 156 pounds. Dakota Martin with a Yorkshire weighing 191 pounds. O'Brien Underwood exhibiting a Yorkshire weighing 223 pounds. Olivia Longini also with a Yorkshire weighing 233 pounds. And Avery Burns rounding out the class with a Yorkshire weighing 235 pounds.